heard this muted, and I think now it's time for the clubs to stand up for themselves here. I think
Boycott.
yes, I think that I think the clubs need to stand up and say, if there really is a consensus over all the clubs, which I think from what I've read in the press that there actually is, they need to stand up and be counted and say, like, we're not going to take part in the FA Cup next year if there's no replay, because this isn't just about them and their clubs. This is about how it filters down the pyramid. So welcome back to Small Little Lions FC. And I think it's fair to say for most UK-based football fans, the FA Cup is something that's really close to our hearts. I remember when I was growing up, the FA Cup, particularly the final, was a big event which you'd start watching from the morning when you'd watch the coverage. You'd watch the teams in their hotels, watch them travelling to the game, arriving at the stadium, and then watch the match. It was a real event. So it's got a real special place in all of our hearts. But the news that was revealed recently was the FA have decided through a conversation or a meeting with the Premier League to scrap replays from the first round onwards. Now, me and Matt are going to discuss this and talk about what we feel about this, and also the possible implications for lower down the football league. So I'll go straight up to Matt. And well, you heard the news, Matt. What do you think when you heard that the FA have decided to scrap FA Cup replays?
I mean, when I first heard it, I was really annoyed and frustrated with the decision in and of itself. But then when I delved deeper into it, I was really annoyed with the way it was communicated and the way it was announced, because there was words like consultation and there was words like agreed and there was, they made it sound like everyone was on board and everyone was involved. And actually, when you strip it down, I've got it here. They said stuff like all parties accepted, consultation, and actually 20 teams out of 700 plus were consulted. That's disgraceful in my opinion. And to me, the reason why they've made this decision is because of UEFA and the new format of the Champions League. They've openly admitted this, which means that that tournament's going to take a lot longer, bigger schedule. So the theory is it takes the pressure off the big teams, their schedules, their players, all those sorts of areas.
Yeah.
But it just screams Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, Arteta throwing their dummies out the pram. It seems like there's a little bit of a monopoly at the top. It seems like the bigger clubs are only looking out for themselves. This decision is only in the interest of the big six, let's just say. And it really upset me because it's magic killing, it's inspiring killing.
Exactly.
When you think about the FA Cup, you think about grassroots football, you think about the pyramid, you think about, because the beautiful thing about English football, in theory, is the fact that in the FA Cup, in the League Cup, all these cups, FA Cup in particular, the little man has a chance.
Yeah.
And the replays are massive. And again, just to quote here off my laptop, the old CEO of Crawley Town said when they played United, they received 1.5 million. And to a club like that, that completely transformed them.
Yeah.
Completely transformed them.
Yeah.
So it's undisputed, the magic of this cup, what it does to the small teams. And the fact that they've killed replays kind of means to me that they've killed that little bit of magic and they've killed that little bit of spark.
I think it's absolutely spot on. I think the thing that's really upsetting people the most is you say consultation. I listened to some I think it was on the radio station. Mark Palios he's a chairman of or CEO of Tranmere Rovers. And he was talking about this. He says that when they say consultation, there was no consultation. It was basically one person from the EFL who had attended a Premier League meeting, and they basically discussed it and agreed it there and then. So there was no fan consultation, no consultation with the clubs, and a decision that was made. And why? The FA are there to protect the integrity of the competition, right? To keep that magic you were talking about that we all love about the FA Cup. So what are they doing? Speaking to the Premier League. Who are the Premier League? Mark Palios said that Premier League teams make up only 3% of the overall quantity or amount of clubs that actually take part in the competition, because this goes right back to preliminary rounds, doesn't it? So why are they going to a small bunch of clubs to get an agreement with them when they have a much wider consultation? It's absolutely frustrating. I think the FA are culpable in this, and they really need to look at themselves in terms of their ability to govern a precious competition that we have in this UK that is well known around the world, and they are absolutely ruining it. You mentioned the revenues as well. This is going to be a real hit on some clubs. I think they committed to say they were going to put an extra 30 odd million into grassroots football. But how's that going to be distributed? That's no good to the likes of a Warsaw who will draw Manchester City. And let's say, for argument, it's the FA Cup. they could get a draw, and now they can't take them back to the Bestcott Stadium
Yep.
because now there's no opportunity to do that, and they'll probably get knocked out on penalties.
Mhm.
It's shocking, in my
Yeah, yeah.
opinion.
Tranmere, a couple of Tranmere fans came out and tweeted, was like, "Oh, really sorry," sarcastically said, "Really sorry for the inconvenience of all the replays over the years," because Tranmere Rovers over the past 60 years are renowned for FA Cup replays and
Yeah,
upsets. They've
yeah,
been
yeah,
renowned for it, and
yeah.
it's just for me a big slap in the face, big spit in the face from the big boys at the top, the people who are running the decisions, and it stinks of European Super League kind of motives behind it: money, revenue, Champions League, and you know the fact that. This isn't without evidence, by the way. We looked on, at the time of recording, Man City have just got through to the FA Cup final, and Pep, in his post-match interview, was fuming. He was talking about too many fixtures. They just played Real Madrid in the midweek,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
like, why are we here playing again? He was moaning about it. Arteta came out and didn't really defend it. He said, I understand that there's too many fixtures and stuff. So it's not even as if this is a conspiracy or this is us speculating. The big managers are coming out and saying, we don't want replays. We don't want more fixtures in our list. That's completely unnecessary, so we can concentrate on the Champions Leagues, what would be seen as the big trophies. But what does that say to the little message? It just spits on them completely and says, we don't value you. We don't value your cup run. We don't value the revenue that you might get from this, which is really upsetting.
It's more than that. It's more than that. I mean, the revenue is the most important thing for the smaller
Of course,
clubs.
yeah.
Absolutely, but it's also the profile they get as well.
100%.
Look at Maidstone United this year, who have actually beaten league teams, beat Ipswich. They've had a fantastic run, and their name has been splashed probably all over the world, definitely all over the UK. They've made a lot of money out of it because obviously they've got through various rounds.
It helped that fan went over the edge of the building
Yeah,
as
there's
well.
always something like that. That was quite amusing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
as well?
I hope he's okay, but yeah, that was quite funny.
But he was. He saw him actually walking after that. But it just is frustrating because it's almost like the tail wagging the dog. They've got this small bunch of highly powerful clubs that are actually dictating what's happening to the other 97% of clubs who have got no say, had no consultation, as we've already mentioned. I think that, a lot of clubs have came out through club statements all across the EFL opposing this as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's clearly something that has been a decision that's been made for the interests of the rich and elite clubs at the expense. Again, all this is going to do, is just separate that gap between the rich and the smaller clubs, and it's absolutely frustrating.
It really is. I mean, I'm going to point a question to you, say, what can we do about it? What's the next steps? But before I do, I was on social media a couple of hours ago just doing a bit of research because we always like to do a little bit of prep for these videos. And people had voted in their favourite moments of FA Cup replays. I just want to reference a couple. So that Man United versus Arsenal, Villa Park, 1999, that replay produced the Giggs goal. When he basically took it around the entire team. Brilliant memory. Hereford 2-1 against Newcastle in 1972. Hereford were massive underdogs in that. Obviously, of course they were. Leighton Orient 8, Droylsden 2 in 2010, Everton 4, Liverpool 4 in 1991, Tottenham 3, Man City 4 in 2004. They were the biggest voted in 5 biggest memories of the FA Cup, which were resulting in FA Cup replays. And even then, I can't remember the Leighton Orient 8-2 draws one, but every single one of those games, I either remember watching live or I have watched in, because obviously 72 I wasn't born, but I've watched it back and they were just magical moments. And the fact that those may be stripped from us now is borderline criminal and tragic, isn't it? But what can we do, Dad? What can the EFL, what can teams in the lower leagues do now to really get their voices heard?
Well, you've asked me a question that I was going to ask you, but here's my response, and I've heard this muted, and I think now it's time for the clubs to stand up for themselves here.
Boycott.
Yes. I think that, I think the clubs need to stand up and say, if there really is a consensus over all the clubs, which I think from what I've read in the press that there actually is, they need to stand up and be counted and say, we're not going to take part in the FA Cup next year if there's no replay. Because this isn't just about them and their clubs. This is about how it filters down the pyramid. Mm-hmm. So obviously, the Championship clubs, the League One clubs, League Two, National League and beyond, because the beauty of the FA Cup is you can get people right down the tiers of the pyramid actually getting and progressing. So to them, one replay could be the difference between 3 or 4 years worth of finance to them at that level. I think that the clubs need to think about, what are we going to do about this? Because we can't stand for this. This is ridiculous. Just because we don't want to inconvenience the top clubs. And okay, they will argue, we've got European competitions and we've got this and we've got that because we're elite clubs. Go and play in them competitions if you want to, but don't ruin our heritage and our the culture that we've got in football, just because you want to go and play in lots of European competitions over, the Champions League, Europa League, and even talking about a Super League. If you want to do that, then break away and go and do it, but don't affect the integrity of what we have in our current system.
People have been tweeting, or Xing, saying that people wish now they just had the European Super League, but they're not allowed the Premier League privileges. Just boot them out and just get rid of them because they're ruining the pyramid of the English football system for the greed and the inconvenience of 6 clubs, effectively, which is disgraceful. I go for a walk behind our house, Dad, here at the back, my house at the back, and one of the beautiful things about walking around there on a Sunday is the football that goes on. And, you've got the under-12s, the under-14s, the under-16s, and the men which play on the big pitch at the back. And I know I'm going really grassroots here, but there's something magical about 22 blokes on that pitch having a kick about. It's their passion. They love the sport. They love football. And this decision, to me, has disrespected every single grassroots movement, every single grassroots-based team who try the best for this country to improve players, to give young men and women an outlet to play football. To me, this is just a massive amount of disrespect to those clubs who are just trying to survive, trying to make it forward. And as you said, improve that profile, maybe get a little bit of money. It just goes a long way when you go to that level of League 2 and below.
I think the biggest issue with this, the biggest issue is the way that the FA just think, we just go and talk to the Premier League. Because the FA have actually, by doing that, they completely disregarded everybody else and say, well, these are our priority. But that's not the point. The FA is there as a body of governance and there to protect the integrity of football in the competitions that we run in this country. And they complete. And this is the big issue. I mean, something Chris Wilder, the Sheffield United manager, says. He said when he was talking about this, he said, as always, the game is dictated and dominated by the big boys, and the big boys don't want FA Cup replays, do they?
Yeah.
Basically, he's a football manager who actually a Premier League manager at the moment, and he's just basically summed up. I think that the whole point is that the FA have literally only just gone. Why would you have a meeting with just the Premier League? If you're going to do this, then it should be at least something that's discussed and consulted, and it's just happened. I think it's a disgrace, a complete disgrace, and I think something does need to be done about this, because this is about the bread and butter and the livelihoods of clubs right down the pyramid.
Yeah. Also, the irony is, Man City have got a 200 million salary expense every single year. They've got the squad depth to handle multiple matches, and another frustrating element to it, they've got the resource. I mean, fair enough, playing 3 games in 5 days or whatever, that is an intense schedule, but they're professional footballers. I know you're talking ligaments and muscles, and fair enough, we're human beings. Too much stress will cause injuries moving forward 100%, but rotate the teams. You've got the money to rotate your team, especially when you hit that level of Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal. And also, I can't remember what it was, but the amount of replays the top 6 have had in the past 20 years was so minimal, it wouldn't even touch the sides of their players' fitness or risk of putting them on the injury table. It was absolutely baffling. And as you know, this is a Blues podcast, so just to bring it back to Blues for a minute, just talk about our club and how we've not benefited, but how we've had a little bit of magic with FA Cup replays over the years. I'm really going to rattle these off. 1967 Tottenham, 68 Arsenal, 69 United, 75 Fulham, 90 Oldham, 95 Liverpool, 2008 Newcastle, 2012 Chelsea, 2018 Huddersfield, 2020 Coventry, and even this year we had a replay against Hull City. We've been a club who have had magical moments from FA Cup replays, and for me, I don't want to see it die. I think it's a disgraceful approach, a disgraceful decision. The communication behind this has been absolutely shocking. I want to see this reversed, and if a boycott is the way to get that, I would support it.
Yeah, me too. Years ago, it used to be replay after replay. So say our club, Birmingham City, was to draw, say, Sunderland in the FA Cup, and then we drew at St.Andrews. We would then go to Sunderland, okay? If we drew at Sunderland, we'd come back to St.Andrews. If we drew again, we'd go back to Sunderland. But then, obviously, there was a cut-off point where there was, I can't remember what the record is, but one game went to about 5 or 6 replays. And that was the magic of it. It gets a bit tedious, actually, if you go to 5 or 6, but that's the way it was. Then they had this rule that, you have a replay, then it goes to penalties, and now this. But this is a step too far, in my opinion, and it's something that does need to be looked at. It needs to be changed. I think, the EFL and the clubs lower down the pyramid need to stand up to this and say, we're not accepting it.
It's the monopoly kind of element behind it, isn't it? it's the big boys at the top having a monopoly over and dictating decisions to the smaller clubs, which is really hurts. It's like exactly you've hit this point about 3 or 4 times in this podcast. Why go and talk to the Premier League and the Premier League only?
Yeah.
That to me screams monopoly for the big sits and their convenience,
Yeah.
and they're looking out for their own interests.
I think so, and you know, it's a bit of a shock really when I saw that announcement, and the fact that nobody, it just came out of the blue. It really sort of, you know, made it really just felt wrong. And I think you've obviously made some really good points in there about how you feel about it. But what do you think? You know, anybody really? Obviously, we're Birmingham City supporters, and this is a Birmingham City podcast. But this isn't just about Birmingham City, is it? This is about the wider community of football clubs. What do you think about the way it was done? Do you think that a boycott would be the answer? And if not a boycott, what do you think the response should be and how it should be dealt with? Please let us have a comment below and let us know, because I think this is something that needs to be addressed through the wider football community. But I hope you liked the video, and if you did, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. If you're new to this channel and you've not seen us before, we also have a number of social media channels that you might want to check out, and they'll be coming up on the screen now for our X account and our Instagram account. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. And me and Matt will see you on the next video.